One of the things that I have noticed significantly is a lot of anxiety from young men around their bodies, a lot of anxiety about muscularity, about body fat percentage, and about what that means. It's informed by this idea of grind set, this idea of always be hustling, always be on to the next thing, and a big part of that has become control of your diet, control of your body. And we can see the ways that those link in very well with a masculinity that might feel out of control in other parts of your life. And what the manosphere does, and what these communities, be it the red pill or pickup artists or incels or influencers, provide is a very simple worldview that says if you just do X, Y, and Z, you can be confident, you can be successful, and you won't feel anxious and afraid for the future. And of course, that's extremely appealing to any of us.
Auckland University psychology researcher Chris Taylor has spent years talking to boys and young men about what it means to be a man, what shapes that, and how they feel about it. Earlier this year, the British miniseries Adolescence introduced many parents to the manosphere, but to Taylor, it's not a new concept.
The manosphere is a useful term for describing a whole array of different influences and communities that exist online. So you can describe it, Debbie Ging, a researcher in this area, calls it a loose confederacy of different groups, and they range from pickup artists, groups called the Red Pill, and incels, through to influencers like Andrew Tate is probably one that people are more familiar with now, but others like Sneeko and Hamza Ahmed and others. And it's a convenient term to describe all of these groups, but we also have to be aware that these groups aren't uniform, they're not a monolith. But what unites all of these groups is a streak of anti-feminism and misogyny. At the moment in particular, there's a lot of drift between self-improvement, self-help, and workout routines, and this gradual sort of pipeline into groups that are much more involved in anti-feminism and misogyny and that sort of thing. Because it's actually a process that it can be quite quick, but it's often quite subtle. You start off watching workout videos about how to do it, a better deadlift, and then over the course of weeks you may end up being siphoned into a special interest group, be it the red pill or pickup artistry or some of these more problematic influencer spaces. And so it's actually quite insidious, because it says if these messages, and most of the messages that are given to young men are around either getting the ideal body or getting the ideal bank account balance or getting the ideal girlfriend, that all of these things are offered in a way that's very difficult to critique, because they say, well, you're just helping these anxious young men feel more confident or be successful businessmen or be healthy. But through that introduction, you get inevitably a political commentary or a worldview that is proposed to these young men that says, by the way, the reason you find it difficult to get a girlfriend is because feminism's gone too far, or the reason that you can't make a lot of money is because you're a beta male. It's easy to create a kind of cartoonish version of this that allows people to disregard what I'm saying, to say it can lead to conspiracism and neo-Nazism and that kind of thing. And people go, well, that's not my experience, I just want to watch workout videos. And that's fine. I totally agree. Not everybody who watches Jordan Peterson ends up a neo-Nazi. That would be absurd to propose. But there is a pretty well documented creep, conceptual and ideological creep that can happen with young men watching these videos, and research bears that out. It creates this cartoonish reality that says, or even when they say life is hard, they say life is hard, but the solution to that is work hard and do X, Y, Z, and you'll be fine. And it's not true, because life is complicated and unpredictable, especially when you're 15.
Taylor says a knee-jerk reaction from parents and other adults isn't helpful. He says teenagers are asking for a non-judgmental space to talk about what they see online and the feelings they have that might make that content appealing.
The first thing that I would do is not give them advice. because they get advice all the time. In fact, the advice that they're getting they're seeking advice from online influencers. They're looking for the answers to solve their anxiety. But what I've realized, and this is pretty unanimous across all of the groups of boys that I've worked with, is they have very few avenues to talk about their anxieties or their feelings or their concerns for the future. And once they trust you and they understand that you're not going to lecture them and you're not going to give them advice, they have so much to tell you. And it's kind of counterintuitive, I think, to a lot of parents and teachers, is the solution is not to give advice, but to listen and to engage openly as we can, even sometimes if that's difficult, and try to get a real understanding of why they might feel that way, or why they might be anxious, and why they might be mad. And I've talked a lot to groups of teachers and groups of parents, and the feedback I get all the time is, well, that's a real shame for those other parents, but that's not my kid. And that's simply burying your head in the sand. That's not the case, because it's somebody's kid. And even if it's not your kid, it's kids in your child's environment who are dealing with these things. So your child, even if they're not watching this content and not engaged in these groups, will know about it and will have to be negotiating how they feel about it, even if they don't have a cell phone.
RNZ's own investigation has found that a significant proportion of social media content that gets shown to teenagers is about body image. Concerns about the kind of content teenagers see online has prompted Australia to introduce a social media ban for under 16s later this year. National Party ministers are now working on a similar law in New Zealand.
The social media ban is short-sighted in that way because it deals with the symptom as opposed to the underlying issue, the cause of the issue. So if we were to just ban social media, then sexism remains. I think we often reach for these immediate and very simple solutions to very not only complicated problems, but problems that actually, if we deal with them in any depth, hold a mirror back up to us in terms of show us our inadequacy in terms of how we deal with issues in the offline world. So we would have to then, if we were talking about misogyny and gendered violence and sexism online, we have to recognize that those are endemic problems in this country. And getting rid of social media isn't going to solve that problem. And that's why I think we reach for the ban hammer, to use some internet jargon. Like, we just go straight to, let's get rid of it, and somehow that's going to mean that the kids are safe from all of these problems. It's inherently patronizing to young people. And having talked to a lot of young people and engaged with a lot of young people on these issues, I know that they actually have pretty interesting ideas about social media. They have criticisms themselves. They have all sorts of interesting ideas about what could be done in the future. And none of that involves banning it. It involves better regulation of social media companies. It involves better education in schools. And one of the things that comes through loud and clear for talking to young people is it actually involves adults speaking with them frankly about what they're seeing. I think it's political pageantry. It's just saying, here's a simple solution for the thing that we're all anxious about, which is sort of the same thing that we're being sold all over the internet. Here's the simple solution. Complex problem, here's my simple solution that you're going to like. Will it work? No. But it'll make you feel better.